Hello, fellow classmates and Professor Crage. My name is Erin Barton, and I'm here to discuss the 5 components of language and literacy development. We're going to discuss all 5 components, the meaning of those components, how they help with the linguistics when it comes to literacy development in the classrooms, and give some examples. So first, we're going to start with phonology. Phonology is the study of sounds of language. It includes the identification of individual sounds of language and the rules for combining those sounds. So that means anything in regards to phonemes, phonemic awareness. So that means looking at, can students sound out words? Can students be able to decode or segment words? So that is where phonology plays a role. Next, we're going to look at morphology. Which is the study of the structure of words. It includes the identification of the root words, which are morphemes, and the rules for combining those words. So you're looking at when you have subjective words. So like say if we're doing, say if we're trying to combine a word, you're looking at the root word, the meaning of that word to determine what that word really means. Instead of trying to look up the definition, you take the root word to help you define what that actual word means. Next, we have syntax. And that is the study of the structure of sentences, which includes the identification of the parts of speech in a sentence. So you have nouns, you have vergatives, you have subject, you have predicate. You're looking at how to structure a sentence to where the teacher may understand what the student is trying to say or how to form that sentence. And it looks at the rules for combining those parts of speech. So how can that sentence make sense using those different parts of speech? Next, we look at semantics, and semantics is the study of the meaning of words and sentences. It includes the identification of the denotative and connotative meaning of words and rules for combining those meanings. So you're looking at the sound of how to bring emphasis to the sound of the sentence. How does those words and sentences mean, well, not how, but what do those words and sentences mean in that sentence? How does those words make that sentence have a meaning? And lastly, we look at pragmatics, which is the study of the use of language in context. So it's looking at if it has, what kind of emotions are you bringing to the sentence? It includes the identification of the communicative functions of language. So that means informative, directive, expressive, and the rules for applying those functions in different contexts. So you're looking to see how do they sound in that sentence. Do they sound emotional? What are their emotions like? Are they happy? Are they sad? What kind of expressions are they bringing to the language of those sentences? And the reason why this is important for us to understand these compounds of the linguistics and supporting students is because they provide a framework for understanding how language works in sentences. This understanding can be used to support the development of early literacy skills in students who struggle with linguistic components. So those students who may have a hard time with forming sentences on their own, using phonology, for example, if they have a struggle with phonemic awareness, it can be very difficult for them to create a sentence on their own. Granted, they probably may be able to sound out those words, but if they don't hear the sounds that put that word together to create it, it can be a struggle for them. Now, when developmentally we approach research-based instructional strategies, it supports the language and literacy development of early childhood students who struggle with linguistic components. And this includes the explicit instruction in the sounds of language, which is phonemic awareness, the explicit instruction in the structure of the word, which we mentioned is morphology, the explicit instruction in the structure of sentences, which is syntax. How are we structuring the sentences? How are we making sure that these sentences make sense, basically? The explicit instructions in the meaning of words and sentences, the explicit instruction in the usage of language in context, these instructional strategies have to be tailored to individual needs of each student. So basically, you want to look at to see how can I use these strategies to help those students. For example, when we're looking at phonemic awareness, we're looking at how are students able to use the letter sounds that they learned to create a word to make a sentence. And phonemic awareness plays a role in just about every level of each stage when it comes to the language and literacy development of a student. So you want to make sure that you're looking at how are students using the basics to help with the other parts of a sentence structure. So how can they use that phonemic awareness to identify the noun or the adjective they may want to use in that sentence? Or how are they using phonemic awareness to understand the meaning of a word by sounding out that word in order for them to know the meaning of that word, for it to make sense in that sentence, depending on whatever the topic, or being able to show what type of emotion can you identify in that sentence, or the language that they're using for the context in that sentence. So each area does play a role with each other, and it does coincide with what we should be able to use within literacy development, especially for students who do have a hard time within each category. Thank you for listening to this information. I hope it was very helpful for you to use within your classroom. I know I have been using these strategies with the students that I have, and even with those students who have been struggling. So thank you for listening. Bye.